Hey guys, it's Kaylor. Welcome to the YouTube channel. In today's Adobe XD tutorial, we're going to be creating this website right here, and we're also going to utilize a tool called Adobe Dimension. It's going to allow us to create some cool 3D objects and render that out and add it to this project to make this website. So you want to make sure you have Adobe XD and Adobe Dimension. If you have Adobe Creative Cloud, just go ahead and download those up and get ready for today's tutorial. If you guys are new here, I make UI, UX, and other design related content here on this channel, so make sure you click that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you don't miss a video, because I try to upload every single week. Except last week. I had to take a week off. Never doing it again. So we're gonna start off here in Adobe XD, and the project file link is down in the description. Like all of my other tutorials, I'm gonna have all the assets here in the left side for you. I will add the symbols after we finish the tutorial, so they will already be here for you guys. But I like to show you guys how I create these symbols. So I'm gonna leave those out for now, but I do have all the font sizes we're gonna use as well as the colors in here. And on the home artboard, we have the grid layout set up. It's just the 12 column default that Adobe XD gives us. And by the way, we're using a 1920 by 1080 artboard. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start with the navigation up here at the top. And for our logo, it's gonna be typed. So I'm just gonna type out the word dimension. And I'm gonna set this to a veneer 30-point font. And this is gonna be aligned to the left, and it's gonna be set to heavy. We're gonna skip one column on each side of our artboard for some nice spacing. So I'm gonna align this to the left of the second column, and we'll put this 50 pixels from the top of the artboard. On the right-hand side, we'll have some simple links. So we'll start by adding login. And I have two a veneer 17-point fonts in here. One is medium and the other one is book. So for links, we're gonna use the one that is set to medium. And I'm gonna make sure this aligned to the right. So we're gonna center this up vertically with our logo text, and we're gonna align it on the right-hand side of this second column over here. So let's just zoom in a bit. And I'm gonna create a few of these. So I'm gonna hold Alt and drag over, and we'll do about 40 spacing in between each one of these. And the next one's gonna be contact. We'll add one for about. Explore, and finally we'll do how it works. Feel free to make these your own. I'm just adding some random ones in here, making sure they have consistent spacing throughout each one of them. So that's our basic navigation there. We are gonna have an icon next to the word dimension. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a rectangle and hold Shift to make a perfect square as I drag that out. And we're gonna set this to 24 pixels by 24 pixels. And we'll just align this 5 pixels to the left of the word. And we'll leave it there as a placeholder for our icon. Next up, we need some text. So I'm just gonna go ahead and grab a title and paste that in. And we're gonna set this to a veneer 50-point font. I'm gonna align it to the left, and it's gonna be set to heavy weight. So for now, we're just gonna align it to the second column on the left. We're not gonna worry about the vertical height yet. So we're just gonna put it anywhere we want. So it says putting the pieces together, and below that, we're gonna have some body text. So I'm gonna grab the type tool and drag out a text area that is 3 columns wide, and just put in some text. Grab some lorem ipsum, and I'll just paste that in for now. Feel free to type out stuff if you actually want to. And we're gonna set this to a veneer 17-point font. And then I'm gonna adjust the height of this box, so it's just below our 2 lines of text. For the placing on this, we'll just do this visually. Let's do about 15 pixels below our heading. That looks pretty good. So now we're gonna need some kind of call to action or button. So I'm going to create a button with the rectangle tool. I'm just gonna make it 2 columns wide, and I'm gonna set this to 72 pixels high. And we'll put this 40 spacing below our body, or you can do 30. I'm gonna do 40 because I want a little bit extra spacing so this button stands out just a little bit more. So for our button, it's gonna be a little bit more of a complex button. So I'm gonna grab this icon placeholder, and I'm gonna bring it to the front using Command Shift right square bracket key. And I'm gonna align this center vertically, and then I'm gonna put 24 spacing on the left over here. And if I hold Alt with this element selected, and I hover over this rectangle, you'll see we have 24 spacing on the top, the bottom, and the left. That's why I set that to 72 pixels high. So that looks pretty nice. Next to that, I'm gonna say get started. And since this is another link, we're gonna set that to that Avenir 17-point font, and it's gonna be medium weight. We'll just put this 14 pixels to the right of our placeholder. To add a little bit more detail to this button, I'm gonna drag out a square that is 72 by 72, and we're gonna place that on the right-hand side over here. And inside of that, we're gonna have another icon directly in the center, Command-Shift right square bracket key to put that placeholder there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a lightning bolt icon over here that's gonna say this is get started, you're doing an action, and then this arrow is gonna mean that we're gonna be directed to another page or we're going somewhere. So it's just a complex, nice looking button. Finally, the last thing that we're gonna have on this page before we go into Dimension is we're gonna have an icon in the center of our artboard, 50 pixels from the top, and this is gonna be for scrolling down. So this is kind of our wireframe, so let's go ahead and add our colors and detail to this. So first off, let's start by dragging in our icons. I'm using a program called Nucleo, which allows me to store my icon sets, and I can easily just drag and drop them here into Adobe XD, and I believe this program is still free. There is a paid version, but I think it's just giving you access to their personal icon set. So if you want to check out Nucleo, I would recommend it. So I've dragged in a mouse icon from the icon set box icons. It's one of my personal favorites, and I'm just going to drag this and center it into this placeholder square. I'm going to select both and make sure they're perfectly centered and hit Command G to group them together. I'm going to double click and I'm gonna select that rectangle in the background. I'm gonna remove the border and I'm gonna turn the opacity all the way down to 0%. So now anytime I select this group, I can set this to whatever color I would like, and it's also filling that square, but since it's at 0% opacity, we cannot see it. So for now, I'm just gonna set this back to black, and I'm gonna do that same process that I just did for the rest of these icons. So here for the Dimension logo, I'm going to get a 3-dimensional cube icon. So I'll just search that up in Nucleo and drag it in. Center it up inside of our square. Select the square, remove the border, and turn the fill to 0%. Select both, Command G to group them together. For our final two icons, we're going to use a lightning bolt. So I'm just going to drag that in, and we'll also need an arrow. Drag that in. So center align it into our square. And the real reason I'm doing this is you'll see when I hover over the actual icon, I like to have this extra space around, and this helps me with this 24 pixel box to align icons together. It just helps me speed up that process of aligning icons and making them look good together. So I like to have this spacing box in all of my icons that I use in my designs. So that's the reason I'm doing that. It's a nice little trick that I found to align icons together. So we'll do this one more time, align that perfectly center, Command G, double click, select that, turn it to 0% opacity. And now for this one, I'm gonna rotate this arrow 180 degrees. That way it's pointed to the right. So I believe that's all the icons in here that we need. So let's go ahead and start adding a bit of color to this. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this with Command S. And I'm gonna select the artboard and we're gonna set this to a purple color. And this is 9953F9. So now that we have this dark purple background, the black text is not really gonna work. So let's turn off the layout grid so we can actually see our design. And I'm gonna select everything up here in the navigation and set it to white. Same thing with our heading and our body. Now on our body, I'm gonna select this body text and drag the opacity down to 60% or so. And that's gonna give this some separation from the heading. Before, if we take a look at it, it kind of just blends together and the heading's not really standing out from this. So we want that separation. So we'll set that back to 60% opacity. Down here at the bottom, we'll grab that icon, set that to white as well. And now for our button. So let's select the rectangle and remove the border. And we'll set this to a light pink salmon color. This is FCB6BA. And for the square we have here on the side, we're gonna remove the border as well. And then we're gonna set this to just a slight shade darker. This is FCA7B9. So you can see that nice salmon colored pink button is really standing out on the purple, looking nice. To make it even better, we're gonna select the icons and the text and set that to white. So there is our button now done. You can even group that together if you'd like with Command G. So from here, I'm going to grab the button, the body text, and the heading, and Command G to group them, and I'm going to center line them to the artboard. So we didn't worry with the vertical height of that earlier, and so that's why. So we just now set that. So from here, we're ready to move into Adobe Dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my artboard and hit Command E to export this as an image. So I'm going to do that now. So once I've exported that as an image, let's go ahead and load up Adobe Dimension. So here is the launch window for Adobe Dimension. I'm just going to select Create New. So first thing here, we're going to set the canvas size to the same artboard size that we're using in our design, which was 1920 by 1080. Z on the keyboard will give you the zoom tool, and I'm going to hold Alt and click a few times so that we're zoomed out a little bit so we get a full idea of what we're doing. I'm going to hold spacebar and just drag this in center here. So what we're going to be doing in here is just creating a simple shape that represents putting the pieces together, which is the current heading that I have. So it's really going to play on that and show that visually. So it's not going to be anything too complex. So what I'm going to do is go over here, and you see this filter by. We're going to select this little first one, and that's going to show all of the models that we have. So down here at the bottom, there is a rounded cube flat. We're just going to click that, and that's going to add that here inside of Adobe Dimension. So what I'm going to do is on the toolbar, I'm going to grab this orbit tool. So how Adobe Dimension works is up here, these tools right here are for working with your objects. So you have your rotate tool and your scale tool and your selection tool for your objects, but then you have those down here for the camera, your orbit tool, your pan tool, and your dolly tool. So I'm going to grab the orbit tool for the camera, and I'm just going to rotate this so that we have kind of a top-down view. And then I'm going to press V on the keyboard for my basic selection tool, and I'm going to align this on this dark edge in both directions. And I'm just eyeballing this. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to use that orbit tool again to get more of a top-down view. And I'm going to put that right on that edge, like so. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't actually think it is, but that's fine. So what I'm going to do here is I'm using my scroll wheel to zoom out a bit. And I'm going to zoom out quite a bit. And then I'm going to grab the pan tool, and I'm just going to move this up a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this a few times. So I'm going to select our first cube and hit Command D to make a duplicate. And then I'm going to drag this red handle out one of these boxes that we have on our grid. And I'm going to do that one more time, just like that. Then I'm going to hold Shift and select all three of them and hit Command D to create duplicates and drag it out one box in the other direction. Command D one more time and drag that out. So now we have a grid of these. So for putting the pieces together, we're going to have all these slightly levitating off of the ground. So as I raise this up, you'll see that there is a shadow below them. So all of them are going to be raised up just slightly off the ground like that. And I'm going to go in the back, and I'm going to just raise this one up quite a bit. I'm going to grab these two and drag them up. And I'm going to drag the right one up on the side just a little bit more than this one to add some variation. So the idea is that these are falling into place. They're landing on the ground, falling into place, putting the pieces together. So I'm going to grab this one and drag it up just slightly. And so all of these are technically on the ground. They're already in place, and these are falling in place, giving that visual off. So that's what we're going to do for there. I'm going to use my scroll wheel to zoom out a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is start positioning this where our content is. So what Adobe Dimension allows us to do is select the environment over here in the scene, and we can set a background. And here you'll notice we have the image, so I'm going to toggle over to that. And I'm going to drag in that home artboard that we designed in Adobe XD. And with that, you'll see that we have our design here in Dimension. So now we can visually align how we want this 3D object to be placed in our design by moving the camera around. So I'm just going to grab the pan tool. We want it over here on the right a little bit. I'm going to zoom in just a bit. And I'm using the orbit tool now to just rotate this a little bit. We kind of want this at an isometric angle. And you can zoom in and out as much as you want to make these bigger and larger. I'm just gonna go for like a decent size. So once I'm happy with the position of these pieces coming together, I'm going to select one of them and hit Command D, and I'm just gonna send it way back here into the back and bring it up a little bit. So we have kind of one flying in here that's gonna come over here and connect with these. And I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. I'm gonna hit Command D and drag this out, and we'll have one coming in here from the bottom just to give it a little bit more detail to the illustration. So the illustration now is covering more of the screen, basically. So from here, I want to add a small detail showing the pieces coming together a little bit more. So I'm going to grab a plane. I'm just going to click to add that, and I'm going to drag it over, and I'm actually going to grab the scale tool, I think it's called. Yeah, select and scale. And I'm going to scale this in so that it is kind of like a line, something like that. And then we'll position this and connect all these together that are actually connected here. So we're just gonna do this visually. We're gonna put that there. Command D, and I'll just drag that one into position. Command D, and I'm gonna rotate this time. So I'm gonna grab the rotation tool. I'm gonna hold Shift, and I'm gonna rotate it. And then we'll put it connecting those two together. Command D and connect those. Command D one more time and drag it over to connect those. So those that are on the ground connected are now symbolized with a line. And so now we're at the point where I'm happy with this illustration for our project. So we're gonna start and add some texture to these. So I'm gonna grab one of these rounded cubes. In this case, we're grabbing this one. I'm gonna grab the topmost one. I'm gonna go over here, and where we filtered by our models, now we can filter this by our materials. So at the top of the materials, there is a plastic material, which in this case, I'm gonna use plastic. You can use any of these materials and play around with this. This program is super cool. So I'm gonna select plastic, and I'm gonna set the base color as white. And I'm gonna do that for all of them. So I'm gonna select the rest of them holding Shift. You can see over here, I'm selecting these in the scene view, and I'm gonna select plastic for all of those. And then I'm gonna select this arrow on one of the layers, and I'm gonna change this to white, and it's gonna change all of them to white. For these rectangles, I'm gonna hold Shift and grab all these little rectangular planes that we're using. I'm gonna add a glow effect to these because we want these slightly to glow. So I just clicked on that. Again, hover over one of the layers and hit this arrow, and this will expand the view so we can edit the properties. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna select the swatch. I'm gonna grab the eyedropper. I'm gonna come over here and grab one of these two pink colors. Let's go with the darker one. And for the glow, we're gonna turn this down to a really low glow. We barely want this to glow. We really wanna see that color. So maybe 30. So I'm happy with the materials that we've applied so far. If you wanna view the render, you can select this. It'll give you a little quick render. Let me expand that. It just renders it really roughly so you can take a look at what it's gonna look like rendered out. So what we want to do from here, now that I'm happy with this, is in the scene, we want to select our environment, and we want to uncheck the background. So we're only going to be rendering our 3D objects. And similar to Adobe XD, we have our tabs up here. We're going to switch over to the render tab, and I'm just going to render this to the desktop. I'm going to select the quality at high, and I'm going to set a name for this. So we'll just call this render 01. I like to do a PSD file, and I'm going to set that to 32-bit, and I'm gonna select render, and I'll be back once that's done rendering. So my render has finished. I'm here inside of Photoshop because I rendered this out as a PSD file, which is what I like to do. And in here, I'm actually going to remove the background color, and then I'm going to export this as a PNG. So I'm gonna go File, and then I'm gonna look for the export, quick export as PNG, and that's it. So now we're back in our Adobe XD design file. I'm just gonna drag in render-01, which is what we named our image. And I'm going to align this to the center of our artboard, and it should match up exactly the size we need it to. Command Shift left square bracket key to send it all the way to the back, just to make sure there's no content interfering with that being on top. So now it's all the way to the back, and there is our design. So that is it for this tutorial. That is using Adobe XD and Adobe Dimension together to create this website design. So let me know down in the comments what you think of Dimension. I'm curious of what you guys think about it. And also let me know if you'd used it before this tutorial. Very interested to see how many of you guys have actually used Adobe Dimension. I myself have only used it a few times and I'm really impressed with it. So let me know your guys' thoughts down there. So that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more design related content. Make sure you have that notification bell on so you don't miss a video. And as always, have a great day and I'll see you guys in the next one.